welcome to On the Grass. We're delighted today to Jack, Amy, myself, Pete Lansley. We're delighted to be joined by Steve Guppy, former England, Leicester and Celtic winger. Thanks very much for joining us, Steve. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. And before we start talking coaching, youth development, what's been going on at Celtic and your 1v1 stuff, can you just tell us where are you in the world right now and what have you been up to?
Yeah, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. Been here, my goodness, I think nearly 5-6 years. It goes so quickly. I came out here originally to be the assistant manager for the new MLS franchise here in Nashville FC or SC. And so that ended about a year ago, but 4 or 5 years there. So kids are settled, so we decided to stay.
Nice one. Okay. Well, over the next 30 or 40 minutes, we're going to be reflecting on your career, your thoughts on youth development, your 1v1 niche speciality. Okay, we've got a little icebreaker for you here, Steve, and we're just going to give you 30 seconds, and you've got to tell us, right? This is the scenario. You're a coach at Celtic Park. It's half an hour before the Old Firm derby. Throw that one on you. And
Right.
You're working with the players. You've got the cones, the bibs out. Is your priority physical, technical, social, or psychological? You can only choose one, and you can tell us when you want the 30 seconds to start.
Yeah, go when you're ready then, I guess.
Okay, Archie, put the timer on, please. Go.
Well, I think psychological, it's such a unique game. So I remember growing up as a player, some things that stick with you. One of the things is every game I try to go into is try and outwork them and then outplay them. That was against your opponent. And an Old Firm game, I don't think there's never a truer word spoken when it comes to that. You can't get blown away in all of it. And then, of course, you have to be brave enough to try and play. So when you think about those things, psychological would be something that you'd be leaning on just before you went out and played, I guess.
Fantastic. How did he do, Archie? Just about bang on, I think. Yeah. Well played. Right.
Yeah.
And obviously, I've thrown that one in about Celtic because old contact of ours, really good friend of yours. What do you make of Martin being back at Celtic and how is he going to do this time round?
Well, it's great. I do think he, for whatever reason, was sent out to pasture way too early. I mean, you know him, I know him. He's one of the great managers of our era. Fantastic manager. And it just showed that when he went up at Celtic, they seemed to be in disarray, really. And, he was able to get the best out of the players there, which is exactly what he did when we were at the time at Wickham, Leicester. It goes on. And then as a coach, I was fortunate enough to work with him as well. And it's just brilliant at what he does. It's so difficult to put, a finger on exactly what it is. But having worked with many managers, before and after him, then you start to realise how good he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And such a character. It's lovely to see him back in the game. So 7 wins out of 8 in the first spell. Let's see how he does in the next 6 months. But fingers crossed. And let's see. I mean, if he won the league now, that would be quite something, wouldn't it?
Well, I listen, of course, he's not a miracle worker. At the end of the day, I know they have their challenges up there. And I think he's already alluded to that he needs more players to come through. I think there has been issues with recruitment there. I went there a few weeks ago and watched them play, so I wouldn't say I'm an expert on it, but I did get to see it live, and there is no doubt that he needs reinforcements there. If he can get that, then it will be very, very exciting. It's going to be exciting. 3-horse race up there. When was the last time you said that in Scottish football? I nearly said soccer. Oh, sorry. So yeah, very, very exciting times. We'll be watching that with great anticipation, no doubt.
Yeah, he could do with a 28-year-old Steve Guppy. I just in case anyone was in my doubt. I haven't been stalking you, Steve, over the last 35 years, but I have got a Wickham shirt, a Celtic shirt, and a Colorado Rapids tracksuit from your career. So thank you very much for keeping me warm and dry. But yeah, it could do with you sort of 28 years old, beating a few people, because one-on-ones has always been a big love for you, hasn't it? What is it about the one work that you do, and why is it that you think it's so important?
Oof, well, where do I start with that? Obviously from my own experiences, I know how important it is. But, more recently, working with youth players, it's so incredibly important. And I think it's a little bit misunderstood when you actually look at a 1v1 and things that are needed to break it down. It's, you know, when you look, a lot of things on YouTube and yeah, it's all these flashy tricks and all the rest of it. But actually, when you do break it down, and why it's so important for youth players is that there's three main components to it, which is obviously you need to be predominantly moving at pace. Now I know there's different 1v1s all over the pitch and all the rest of it, but predominantly you're going to be moving at pace, not always. Secondly, you need good ball control. One thing 1v1s does is it brings the player to the centre of the game. So they're not on the periphery like you have in a normal game. 1v1 work brings the player to the centre of the game. So that offers a much bigger transfer of learning, no doubt. And the third thing will be the trick. The trick needed, that bit of deception to beat the defender. Now, that could be a step over, a drop the shoulder, or anything like that. It's up to the individual, but to me, they are actually all the same, and that's where it gets confusing for people. All the same, because when you break it down, what you're actually talking about is when you do that trick, is combining two or more body parts. That's what it is. So it's quick feet, maybe some knees, but it's your hips and your shoulders all working together whilst moving at pace, whilst got good ball control. So when you break it down like that, what we're actually talking about here is movement, ball control, and coordination. Movement and coordination are two of the most important things for any young player's development. So that's a quick little intro to where my mind is at. I know hopefully we'll go into it a little bit more detail, but that's why 1v1 work to me, especially youth players, is so incredibly important, and why it's so very difficult and you don't see so many people do it.
And can you tell us a little bit about the one-on-one tournaments you're working on?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing, I've spent the last 15 years working in the pro game, very fortunate. A lot of the things I was doing there was around position-specific work, namely 1v1s, as you said, attacking play, attacking 1v1s, predominantly in the final third. Why I like that so much, obviously, because what you do need is an end result. So I know I'm always banging on about 1v1s, but the end result is probably more important. But you need to get the first bit right I think, to be able to have the opportunity to get that end result right. So 1v1s tournament, I do them all over the country here in the US. Been doing it like 3 or 4 years now. In Canada, been over to England last summer, did some. I was literally in Calgary, Canada, just Boxing Day. I was over there, fabulous place, minus 22 the whole time I was there. So it was indoors, thankfully. I can cater up for around about 120, 130 kids, predominantly between the U8 to U16 is because I'm normally partnering with youth clubs, so that's the age that they work in, although they do work, with older groups. And the two big issues I had, and I'll speed up, the two big issues I had is, and what a lot of coaches have, I think, is if I have, they're put into their specific age groups. So say if I had 20 10-year-olds, say, in one group, and they never go against anyone else, their own age group. There's like 5 stations, 6 stations around a full-size soccer pitch, and they rotate round predominantly to goal, because I think you get more fun and it's more enjoyable 1v1 to goal, and of course it comes out with that end result. But the two big issues I had, firstly, is how long does each player have to wait between each attempt? Because if it was longer than 3 or 4 minutes, I think I'd lose the pros, what I'm working with, let alone young kids. So the way I've devised the games, the rotations, the rules, each player waits around about a minute and a half in between attempts. So it's very, very fast moving. I try and offer them maybe 50 1v1 attempts in a 2-hour, 3-hour 1v1 tournament. And the second thing is I wanted it to be inclusive for everyone. So it's not just for your elite centre forward who's had a massive growth spurt, stronger than everyone else. Of course they do well, but what I've tried to do to make it inclusive is I have a scoring system, which means both attacking and defending. They can score maximum points, exactly the same points in each attempt. So what I'm trying to say is you could be a really good 1v1 defender and win this tournament. And when I was in England in the summer doing these tournaments, we partnered with Reading Football Club, and their chief scout, great guy, he came to all 3 tournaments with under no illusions to anything. And at the end of the 3 tournaments, he'd scouted 7 players to try out in their academy, which one of them was signed up for, which is an incredible story. But the reason I'm telling you this, out of those 7, 6 of them were defenders. So
right, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing the scoring system does is it enables me to create a national leaderboard, which is what I've done. It's on my website. If anyone's interested, the 1v1 Formula Tournament, go and have a look. And so for the better players, the players who, because every player is developing at different stages of that age, but the ones who are ready, then I want to offer them something to get their teeth into. But really, it's a 1v1 tournament, but it's more of an educational thing where I'm constantly offering advice. And we video every station, so the player gets all of their 1v1 clips at the end of it, which I think is an incredible coaching tool using video. So yeah, that's really the crux of it. And we've got our first national final this summer in Carolina, where all the players on the leaderboard are going to be invited from Canada, England, the US to go up against each other in a national final against the Carolina core MLS Next Academy players. So, a lot to look forward to.
Sounds exciting. It sounds exciting. We've got Jack's a big Derby fan, and I don't actually know, Amy, who's your team?
Liverpool.
Okay.
Yes.
So they've had some interesting wide players. Yes. Amy's a winger with Duffield Dynamos.
Yes.
So what's your view on wing play? And having heard Steve say that about the principles, are you left or right, by the way?
I play either, so left or right. But it's interesting to hear because obviously, as a young person in grassroots football, I'm often not encouraged to do a 1v1 or take a player on. Like especially recently, like when I was younger, it was more about taking people on. But I feel like as it's gone on, we've kind of just been encouraged to kind of pass the ball around and find space rather than take people on. Like, do you think players, especially young players, get enough chance to express themselves through 1v1s?
That's a really good question. I do think the way soccer or football moves in trends. I've done it again. Football's moves in trends. The big trend at the minute is obviously possession based, playing out from the back. People spend more time working on playing out from the back. It could be further away from the opposition goal, but I do understand that obviously they want to play through the press and all the rest of it. Right. Yeah, play through the thirds. That's it. But when it comes to wide players, sometimes the wide player these days is asked to come in field into the pocket for the fullback to bomb on and all the rest of it. So there's different ways. Where I like to think is, 1v1s. Such an important part because everyone's interested in creating overloads. Well, a 1v1 is a fabulous way of creating overloads because if you beat your defender, then guess what? Another defender's got to close you down. And predominantly that would normally be, especially if you're out wide in the final third, someone from inside the box. So you could create overloads where it really matters, which is in the 18-yard box. So, one thing I will say, obviously I think, let me go another way. So what are players try? You play out from the back. You keep this possession pace football. What are you trying to achieve? What is it? Okay, you want to try and pass your way through and score a goal. Okay, that's great. That doesn't happen very often, but that's what it is. So what else are you trying to achieve? So you're moving the ball, changing it. To me, you're then trying to isolate defenders. Well, surely that means you're trying to create 1v1 opportunities. Once again, I understand you're trying to create overloads by isolating defenders, but like I say, it does come down to you spend a lot of time creating isolation, then surely it makes sense to work on 1v1s then as well to finish the job. I do think it does come down to risk versus reward. That's all. When I'm coaching professional players, that's what I'm looking at. I think and bear in mind, I'm looking through my glasses now. When I was 27, 28, probably at the peak of the power I had, is that when I'm out wide and I've isolated defender, the moment I receive the ball, I should know exactly what I need to do. Basically, because I'm out on that touch line, I've got I can see the vision. I can see, like an example, there's 2 players in the box, 2 against 2. There's 2 defenders, there's 2 attackers in the box. To me, that is risk versus reward. That means that is well worth the risk in trying to take the player on. But also it tells me that I need to go down the line to cross, because risk versus reward will tell me if I can beat my defender and cross the ball, then there's a reasonable chance that my forwards could get on the end of it. So risk versus reward and making the right decisions is so important. Of course, if you're a winger and you're going into 1v1s every time you get it and you're losing the ball, you're going down blind alleys, that's not the way. But I will say this, the more you practice 1v1s, the more adept you become at it, the more chance I think you have of lifting your head and seeing these pitches that I've just been referring to. And there is no doubt in my mind, if you are capable of creating goal-scoring opportunities for yourself and others, then you will go to that next level. And you do that through 1v1s in the final third.
It's interesting to hear about the reward that you can get from it, because obviously you see when you watch football, when a winger goes down the wing with pace, all the fans immediately get excited about it. So it's nice to hear that that's what you're encouraging young children to do coming through. What do you think the biggest mistake a coach could make with 1v1s? Do you think there's anything that coaches say that kind of put young people off doing 1v1s?
Well, I think it's funny. There's a lot of bravery needed in 1v1s. I as a player, people will confirm this. I couldn't edit and I couldn't tackle, and so I got a lot of stick for not being very brave, which was a fair point. But the more I think about it, I don't remember ever turning down a 1v1 in my whole career. And I've since seen loads of players who were very good at heading, very good at tackling, turn down 1v1s. And I think there's a level of bravery to it. So maybe I was being a bit harsh on myself all those years. So I do think, it's such a difficult one. I see someone put a clip of she looked about 10 or 11-year-old girl on YouTube the other day of her beating 3 or 4 players in the middle of the park. Really, really great skill. But there was no end result, don't get me wrong. And all the comments, I was looking at the comments, and pretty much everyone was saying, pass it, get your head up, pass it. So it's getting the right times to do it. But of course, at that young age, I think you really should encourage players to express themselves, but obviously whilst trying to keep it within that team environment. It's a tricky one without actually being there, seeing each moment at a time. But I do think we get back to why 1v1 work is so important for the coordination and movement part. And then, of course, each team will play a certain different way. But for that young age group, encourage. I say this, right? I remember going to watch Reading train. Brian McDermott was the manager, and there was a coach called Nigel Gibb. And Nigel Gibbs, it was a bit of a Watford legend. He was first team coach. Never met him before in my life. And it was one of those days I just went in and watched training. And he was very kind enough to come over, Nigel, come over and say hello. And he gave me one bit of advice, which always stuck with me. And that was, he goes, blind them with enthusiasm. And he was talking about them pros. Blind them with enthusiasm. So it's not blind them with loads and loads of information, tactical, make me look really good. I know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you get to drip feed that in when you can. but blind them with enthusiasm. And I think when it comes to youth players, there's never been a truer statement.
Yeah, so like the key is just to encourage them, and then the more they do it, the more they repeat that movement, they'll just become natural at it. And obviously you touched upon your 1v1 sessions, but can we just deep dive into exactly how a session would look and how you manage having a broad number of children doing 1v1s? Like, how does a session work?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's the big problem with 1v1s, and I think why a lot of coaches shy away from them, especially if you're a grassroots coach and you're the only one there and you've got 20, 30 players. The big issue is how long does each player have to wait in between attempts? Because like I say, if it takes longer than 3-4 minutes, they drift away and they lose concentration, start messing around and all the rest of it. So they want to keep that fast moving. So that's what really, I've had the luxury of having 15 years of doing 1v1 drills with pro players and sort of fine tuning it. And so that's what I've done, been able to, create the rotations and time restraints and whatever, for predominantly to make sure it's fast moving. But not just that, time restraints, a 1v1, you have to make it realistic. Maybe not so young, don't get me wrong, but just, I'm not talking about 1v1s where you're looking to beat someone, 4 or 5 players, put it through their legs, flick it over, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about, game-specific 1v1s where you maybe have about 5-6 seconds if you're lucky, and trying to put those good habits in from an early age, because I think coaches do get frustrated when the player tries to beat them 4 or 5 times, and maybe a cross then doesn't come in. Centre forwards don't like you for their movements. Once again, I'm probably going a little bit older there. So, I think that would be a big thing, is to try and make sure that it's fast moving. And I do think another thing I see a lot of is the 1v1s, they do it to stations rather to goal. And I think it's more fun to goal. And of course, like I said, you're working on the 2 hardest things in the game, in my mind, is to score a goal, being the hardest thing in the game. And the second hardest thing for me is to beat a player. So what a great thing to be doing for young players, to be constantly working on the 2 hardest things in the game. Of course, defending element in there as well, of course.
The last thing I want to ask about 1v1 specifically is just, what would you do, or what would you say to your player if they lost the ball in an attacking situation? Like, how would you help them bounce back from that?
Yeah, well, I think once again, I spoke about it coming risk versus reward. If I thought they made the right choice, and it didn't come off, then fair enough. That's the whole point. I think the key is the reaction. It's funny. I was talking about this the other day when we used to, when I was working in the pro game, and we used to get college players or young players come through. What they all used to do in training is so funny. Is to apologise all the time, lose the ball, but my bad. They're constantly apologising. But the hard-nosed pros, you never hear them apologise once. What's the point? I think the whole way you make up for that is in a reaction to what you do when you lose it. If you're one of those players that lose the ball and then walk back, and we've all seen them, for a young player, that's not the one that, that's not gonna, you're not gonna endear yourself to your teammates or your coach. So it really is, if you're brave enough and you make the right choice to try and take a player on and it doesn't come off, then really you owe it to yourself and your team to track back. But we'll say, I do think you kind of have to earn it as well. For me, it's harder to create than it is to stop. So if you want to be that creator, you want to be that player who wants to take players on, then I think you owe it to your teammates and yourself to practice harder than everyone else. So I think, you earn that right by doing the extra work after training, before training, during training, on your days off. Do the extra work to make it, to earn the right to take players on match day.
Yeah,
nice.
Definitely.
Yeah. And we're going to get some clips up of you, Steve, that we're going to talk through. So, Alex in the background, just tell us when you've got those ready, Alex, and we can get Steve to talk us through those. I do, while they're getting those ready though, I do want to, Amy, you scored, I'm just going to give Amy her moment. They had a recent game, Steve, the university team,
Okay.
and we were watching,
Yep.
I think Jack was watching that
Yeah, I
day.
was there.
Amy scored 5 of the first 7 goals or something from the left wing. Yeah. What was in your mind when you were going through and you got one early on? Were you thinking, I can beat this player, but I can cut inside? Was it a thing that, how did that emerge that day, that you're on the left wing, but you were scoring so many goals?
You just, once you get past the player once, it kind of then, you think, oh, well, I can do that again type thing. And like he said, it's like you kind of build it up, the confidence to think, well, I can take them on. And because it happened once, then you think, oh, maybe it could happen again. And then it just kept happening, and like every time. But then I do think you need to keep mixing it up, because if every time I went in on the cut in, they'd soon like figure out. So I think it's good to kind of practice doing both
Going
things.
both ways. Yeah, okay.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like kind of it just builds your confidence, and then as soon as you've done it once, you just want to do it again.
How did your confidence used to be, Steve? If you were going at a fullback and you were having a hard day, it was a difficult fullback, would you stay true to your principles and keep being brave, keep going either way, or would you say, okay, today's a day when I've got to pass the ball more?
No, it's interesting. I will say this: he scored 5 goals. Why are we bothering asking me questions? Asking Amy. That's incredible. Well done, you. I don't think I've ever scored 5 goals
In your career?
So, yeah, pretty much. What was the question again, Pete?
Yeah, would you stay if you were having a day when it wasn't all flying for you, and we're about to see this goal against Chelsea? Would you stay to your principles? That's my thing. Martin said we're playing. I've got license to take him on, or would you think it's a tough day for me? He's got my number. I'm going to play safe. I'm going to turn back inside all the time.
Well, okay. I mean, when they were just talking about my own personal career, how I sort of survived in my mind playing in the Premier League and all the rest of it was that what I just spoke about there, the extra work. You know, I would go out every afternoon after training, get a lot of stick from the players because I don't think they appreciated. It made them feel bad. They were going home, I was going out in the afternoon. I'm not looking for a pat on the back, by the way. I just felt I needed to do it because every time would come the weekend, it didn't always work, of course. I come at the weekend in my mind, and it might be playing tricks on myself. I'd be looking at the fullback I'm up against to be like, okay, well, I've trained harder than you all week. I've worked harder. So I think there's a good chance I can play better than you today. That would be the first idea. The second idea would be like, okay, I'm fitter than you, so I'm going to try and outwork you. So that was my way of surviving in the Premier League. Rather than saying we're playing against Man United today, I would try and chunk it down. So I'm not playing against Man United, I'm playing against Gary Neville or Phil Neville, and I'd be like, okay. And one thing I did used to do is, and these day and age, they have people doing it for them, but I used to keep a dossier of every player I played against and try and work out the strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
Because it is true what Amy says. Sometimes players are really strong down the line. Other players are not strong inside. Because you do regularly get it where you have a right back who's left-footed, for instance. So if you don't pick up on those cues, then I think you could be missing a trick there. So that's what I used to go into, try and have it that I prepared better than everyone else. So mentally try and convince myself I was going to play well, and go in with a plan. So I do think in what Amy said about you have to mix it up. I understand that to a point. But I do think there are things within your armory that people don't think about that you can do to help with that process, like angle of approach, for argument's sake. When I retired, I tried to get loads of videos together, to your point, Pete, where there'd be days where I'd play against a defender and it would be great. I'd be going down the line, crossing the balls, fantastic. Different day, same player, it'd be like pulling teeth, and I was like, why is that? So, after studying loads and loads of videos for months on end, in years really, I guess, I kind of created this 1v1 formula that I've been coaching the pros. And one of the things is your angle of approach, things you can do to sort of create the advantage. Because, if you defenders will show you one way or the other, right? They'll maybe show you inside because there's another midfielder there, or they show you down the line to try and make play predictable. But you're the one who needs to decide where you want to go, because sure, if there's players in the box, then you want to go down the line. If there's an overload there, risk versus reward. But it could be that, like Amy did, coming inside it, that could be the one. So there's things you can do to try and combine maybe your tricks with your angle approach to move the defenders, what I'm trying to say. It's difficult to say it chatting away without showing. But, I think, the whole point is to try and take the initiative away from the defender and try and, and move them to help set up what comes next, your end result.
Okay, so now we're going to get a clip and you're going to talk us through it, Steve. I mean, you've put this together for us, so thank you for that. And if it doesn't work, we'll go into the break and we'll do it after the break. But so I think it's going to come up on the screen any moment now.
Well, just very quickly before we start, is that there's a video we're going to quickly show for 2 minutes, right? There's two main reasons I wanted to show you this video just to start. So if we have a look at this clip and we'll come back.
So what are you doing here? You're shooting with your right foot. So that's what Amy's doing every time.
Well, that's very good. I mean, listen, we haven't got enough time to go in, but that goal actually came to be maybe 7 years earlier when I was at Port Vale practicing, because John Rudge told me that when I shot my right foot, because I wasn't very good at shooting my right foot, but if I had my shoulders parallel to the goal. Yeah, well, there you go. Frankly unstoppable, no blame attached to De Hoy, but the defenders in front of him. Okay, so we can just pause it there.
Let's pause it there then. You talk us through that, yeah.
Okay, so we need to go back to that picture, please. While you're getting that up, so obviously, hold on, you need to go back. Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. You forward it on. I need you to get to that picture in the crowd. Okay. So while you're doing that, so obviously what I said, just very, very quickly, there was 2 to 3 reasons. One is a pretty good goal, and I do tend to show that. I do with these presentations on Zoom and Teams quite a bit, and a lot of players, especially in America, haven't got a clue who I was and whatever. So I have to show them that goal to get them to at least think I might know what I'm talking about, but who knows. The second thing, and I wasn't going to mention it, but now I've started, I might as well, is that goal came because I was always shown down inside, kept getting shown inside because I was so predominantly left-footed, and all I really wanted to do was go down the line. And that's a classic moment. I remember that. It was Dan Popescu for Chelsea. I wanted to go down the line, and if you saw the clip again, he dived in. And so because he dived in, he forced me inside. But the moment I went inside, it started a chain reaction from the extra work I did in the afternoon. Because John Rudge, who was my manager at Port Vale, great guy, he came to watch me do some right foot shooting once. And I got no power. I couldn't strike it with my laces, but I started to work out. I could whip it like a cross. So it'd be interesting to see if Amy can shoot with her laces or she does the same. And to get the extra power from curling the ball like that, he said, listen, you need your shoulders parallel to the goal, not facing the goal. Because if facing the goal, then you don't get the whip. When you're parallel to the goal, then you free up your whole hip. And of course, you're giving yourself much bigger chance of striking the ball on the end of your toe, which is obviously the big toe, biggest bone in your foot. You get more power, more whip, more control. So the moment I came inside, I went to plan B, and then I realised straight away that the Chelsea defenders weren't going to close me down. So I then went to autopilot through all the hours of practice, I guess, where it was like, okay, if you saw that goal again, my next touch, once I came inside, made sure that then my shoulders became parallel to the goal. And anyway, I was able to score that goal. A bit longer than I wanted to explain that, to be honest, because the third reason I wanted to explain why I showed this video. There you go. My shoulder's parallel. There you go. That got it. Thanks to John Rudge. This next touch there, that was on purpose. That meant my shoulders were parallel, and that meant I was able to get.
And then you can get the whip. Okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So is that how you do it, Amy?
Yeah, just like that. No, I do. I have been told to get my shoulders parallel with the goal for that reason, to get the bend on the ball. Yeah, that's one of my coaches last year. That's what his advice was. If you're cutting in, get your shoulders parallel.
Okay, well, sorry. But listen, let's don't go bother going back to the crowd. But the third reason that I wanted to offer that goal was for that crowd. So the moment in the crowd. So I've just scored that goal, wheeling away to the Leicester fans. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. Sorry. The reason this is one of my most prized possessions. I've got this sort of photo in my room. And the reason it's so important to me is because in the top right-hand corner with his arms in the air is my dad.
Oh.
That's my dad. And as you would know him, would have known him, Pete. Now, you know, my football journey was very much a partnership with my dad that started really at the age of 4 years old, where I was in the back garden. He had me in the back garden, drop on my shoulder, bursting past him. And we did it every single day. So when I, you know, like I said, you know, went on to have a professional playing career spanned over nearly 20 years, which is a miracle. As I said, couldn't edit, couldn't tackle. But, you know, it was that work that my dad did that I'm convinced was the reason why I was able to become a professional player. And we'll go into it a little bit more now as we move forward. But I have mentioned a lot of it already.
Nice one.
So when I retired from football, it made complete sense that I was going to try and carry on his good work and become a position-specific coach, i.e. namely in the 1v1s. So what is a 1v1? And I know I've touched on it already, you know, and so I'll breeze through it quickly. You know, I think there's many different 1v1s all over the pitch, but, you know, they're predominantly the same if you break it down. So what is needed? So, yeah, let's play. Press play. So, you know, and I do think it gets a little bit confusing. Step over, shoulder drops, they're all the same to me, because what are you trying to do? And this is why youth is so important for youth players. If you look at this young lad who I've actually coached since he was 10 years old, he's 22 now. How old do I feel? Movement, you need movement. So first and foremost, movement, and more than that, balance. Balance in football is not spoken about nearly enough. Movement is such an important part of the game. Ball control, as I said, 1v1s puts the player at the centre of the ball, constant touches of the ball. So you need to be in control of the ball. And thirdly, as you see in this clip, the reason I put this clip together is a 1v1, a trick, step over, whatever it is, you're combining two or more body parts. So quick feet, knees, hips and shoulders. And that's why this is so incredibly important, because when you break it down, what you're talking about is movement, ball control, and coordination. Movement and coordination, the cornerstone of any sport, if you want to play any sport. Now, because football is such a rare commodity in sport, because you use your feet, you need movement, ball control, coordination more than any other sport, I think, potentially. Maybe not, but it's so important.
Nice one. And where is he, that lad, now? Is he playing soccer, semi-pro or anything?
You know what? I managed to get him a scholarship out here in America. He's fallen in love and actually just proposed to his wife. Future wife. Just proposed to his American girlfriend. So maybe all this training that we did. Just stop it there for a sec. Just stop it there. Sorry. No, you can play it. I just pause it for a second. Yeah. So maybe all the football work he did meant that he got to have a journey out in America and fall in love. Who knows? But a very, very talented player. So yeah, go back to the clip then. Because I think one of the questions is why. You know, I'm banging on about why you need a trick. So, you know, let's just pause it there. Sorry, I know this is difficult. So when it comes up, let's pause it. Let's keep playing. When we can see some action. Okay, if you just pause it there. Okay, so why is a 1v1 so important? Why do you need to have a trick? Because I know not everyone agrees with that. You could, if you look at the defender, so let's look at the defender for a second there. Not ideal. Obviously, I would pause it exactly where I want it. But what you'd normally get is you get a defender come out and they would create an aggressive defensive shape. So a couple of things on that. Their body weight, there you go, kind of like that. So if you could just pause that there for a second. So what is their body weight's going through their toes, they're sort of crouched over, so their muscles, their thigh muscles, the major muscles in their leg, they're tense, they're ready to go. Now, you could push the ball past this player and beat them without a trick, but you will be going up against their very most aggressive defensive shape. Now, if you were to go up against them and combine two or more body parts, let's move on. So if you could combine two or more body parts, i.e. bring a trick, now, obviously, I know this is pretty brutal what it's done, but if you just pause it there for 1 second, is what you did, you started to create, in fact, that's fine, leave it there. You started to, it's so incredible, and it'd be worth watching this. When you watch Premier League, any 1v1s moving forward on TV, watch the defender, because any trick, it always impacts the defender to a certain level. So what it starts to do, it starts to rock them back. So now you have a transfer of body weight from their toes to their heels, if you get it right. Okay. And then, of course, as you rock back, then their leg muscles start to straighten. So what you're looking to do is create a more passive defensive shape. Now, I know there's all sorts of things of trying to get the shoulders open and all the rest of it, and that's one part of it as well. And you can do that with your angle approach and combining tricks, blah, blah, blah. But that's for another day. But just for the very simplistic nature of it, if you can combine two or more body parts, so just press play. You can combine two or more body parts. Now you start to create a passive defensive shape, which gives you a platform to now hopefully excel and be successful. You won't always be, of course, but you're giving yourself the best chance because the defender's obviously having to react from the ball to trying to stop you with the body weight shifted more to their heels. So that passive defensive shape has been achieved if you get it right.
Great stuff.
So there's so many things, listen, I don't want to waffle on too much, but, I think it's so incredibly, look, it's art in my mind. Look how good that is with those tricks, the way it combines with slow motion. You can see it really clearly, but those body movements all working together, that coordination and movement, how slick he moves, how balanced he is, all these things are so vital in a youth player's development. So hopefully by looking at this video, you realise 1v1 work is so incredibly important.
Great stuff. It's really nice details, Steve. So thanks for talking us through there. And I'm sure we have a lot of Grassroots listeners and viewers, and they'll be able to take a lot of that. And if you've got, was that Will teaching you?
Yeah.
Down at Duffield, I'm sure there's lots of Grassroots coaches who'll be able to pick up from that. And we're just getting towards the last 5 or 10 minutes of the show now, but Jack's got some questions from some of our followers, from Grassroots coaches. So just quick fire answers to these, Steve, if you'd be so kind.
The first one comes from Martin. Do you have a go-to drill or practice for developing hold-up play and getting the most out of a number 9?
Wow. Working in the final third, I do. There is a I do like to add an end result if possible, and that's probably not the right way to answer that question because hold-up play can be happening all over the pitch. But the reason I mention it is I remember seeing a drill that Harry Kane used to do, where he used to hold the ball up, but then lay it off, get it back, and end with a shot. So that would kind of be my mentality. Really, is forwards to hold that ball up, give them a little treat at the end of it with a shot. But if it was around the halfway line, no different to anyone else. You're trying to. I tell you what's worth mentioning. I remember many years ago, I was at Newcastle United, And Kevin Keegan was the manager. I wasn't there for long. I was very young, but he got an ex-dancer to come and watch us train, and he watched me train because he wanted to look at my movement. And one thing that he noticed in my game is I didn't use my arms enough. So I didn't protect the ball in tight situations by using my arms, using my levers. And you see that a lot with centre forwards today. Maybe they're too upright. That's a big problem. Not side on to the ball when they receive it. And they don't use their arms enough. So, your question was obviously which session, but I'm trying to talk about the little details that I'm looking for when I'm coaching this type of thing. I'm sure there'll be other coaches who do a better job than me, in this hold-up play. But it's just looking for the little details and trying to create a session that will show these details up.
Yep.
Right, Steve, I'm gonna really challenge you now. 20-second answers maximum to these last three questions.
Yeah, that's fair. I've been going on, haven't I? Sorry.
It's good stuff, but...
Right. Next question comes from Jason. Summer-born children often feel physically behind their peers due to being born almost a year behind their age group. How can coaches best support and develop them?
Well, it's supposed to be that, I think it's a very real thing, this. I'm a classic case. At 12 years old, I was not a bad little player. By the time I was 16, I couldn't even get in my school team because I didn't have a growth spurt at all. But now apparently players can play down and all the rest of it in different age groups to find their level of fun and enjoyment. I'm just not convinced it actually happens.
Yep. The next question comes from Will. What's your view on the grassroots scouting system in England? Is there anything you'd change?
No idea. I think it's very difficult. To your point, to the last question, everyone develops at different stages. It's so difficult. What I will say is if you do give someone a chance and you get them in their academy, then at least wait until they've had their growth spurt before you get rid of them. I think it's almost like a trawler. The big net goes out, they grab as many players as they can and they get rid of them the moment they don't look like they're going to be the one, even though they've not fully developed. It happened to me, and I'm sure it happened to a million other kids, and it affects their confidence. I don't think it's right.
Yeah, and finally, Charlotte asks, is there a skill we don't spend enough time coaching anymore?
Oh, my goodness. I wasn't expecting that. No, I like I say, I don't mind what trick or whatever it is. If we're talking about 1v1s, it's about combining two or more body parts. So, whatever they're comfortable with. But I do think you have to pick something that is done at pace. So it does narrow it down to a few. Normally players try and do all sorts of funny tricks that are probably better off on the beach. I'm not sure if your question was about 1v1s. Was it about any skill in general? But that's the answer I'm giving.
Okay.
Excellent.
And finally, Steve, we're talking mainly to grassroots coaches here, and you've worked with young players, professional players, everything. What would your final piece of advice be to a grassroots coach?
Ooh. Well, I think I spoke about it earlier, right? It's getting back to, I've been very fortunate to work with many great coaches. Martin O'Neill, obviously, we spoke about, Steve Walford, John Robertson, who sadly passed recently. Robbo was a big influence on me. Not really a coach on the playing field, but just the little subtle moments, the light bulb moments. And I think as a coach, always trying to find that light bulb moment. John Rudge gave me a light bulb moment about the parallel, my shoulders being parallel. By the way, your coach, Amy, who told you that, fantastic. Little light bulb moments. So blind them with enthusiasm, encourage, let them play, of course. And then it's the odd little moment now and then that maybe, hopefully, your spot that will really make a difference.
Fantastic. Really appreciate you getting up early in the morning and talking to us, Steve. There's loads of fascinating stuff in there, and I really appreciate your time. We look forward to seeing you back with On the Grass for a future episode. So thank you very much to Jack. Thank you very much to Amy. But mainly, thanks very much, Steve. All the best.
You're welcome.